Here are our top 5 Final Fantasy openings. We won't normally do honorable mentions in this top 5 video series, but it just wouldn't feel right not to mention the iconic opening of the very first Final Fantasy. After saving the princess and defeating the villain who kidnapped her, players are next greeted with a title screen that says, "And so their journey begins." It's a fantastic way of Final Fantasy carving against the grain of other games in its era, where that would have been the ending. And even to this day, that opening mission and title screen perfectly sets the stage of the great adventure that will follow, and also sets the bar for what a great Final Fantasy opening should be for the next top 5 games on this list. Number 5. Final Fantasy XII. The development of 12 spanned the course of the Star Wars prequel trilogy and was released a year after Revenge of the Sith. The opening cinematic of 12 reflects the influence that the Star Wars prequels had on Final Fantasy. Dramatic, diplomatic, and large-scale battles complete with aerial combat from inside the cockpit. Even the musical score felt more John Williams than ever. The scale was epic from the very start. The first 30 minutes of the game showed love and loss, kingdoms full of diverse creatures, war and betrayal. The gameplay was a departure from the previous single-player game Final Fantasy X and resembled more of an MMO akin to Final Fantasy XI. And the tutorial featured a playable character that was not Vaughn, being urgently led by Bosch during a mission to get to the king. It was fun, engaging, and an exciting way to teach the new battle mechanics. By the end of that mission, the game will have ultimately hooked the player into the world of Ivalice. Number 4. Final Fantasy VIII. Really, all I need to say here is Liberi Fatali, but I'm probably saying that wrong, so let me follow up with the legendary composer Nobuo Uematsu was at the pinnacle of his career, and this opening track absolutely floored players. Of course, it was complemented by a fantastic CG cinematic of main character Squall sparring with the antagonist Cypher that led to a bloody trade-off of super sweet twin facial scars caused by swords that are also guns. What follows after is not what anyone would expect in Final Fantasy though. The first location is school. You go to your classroom, you meet new friends, and also people you don't care for too much, and you even get asked to stay after the bell for slacking off on homework. And at a time when I was entering middle school, man, this opening just pulled me into the world of Final Fantasy VIII. Thankfully, its idea of homework was to journey to the Fire Cave and battle Ifrit for the right to use him in battle. That blend of reality and fantasy was and still is top notch. Number 3. Final Fantasy IV. Excluding the PS1 version that opens with a spoiler-heavy cinematic supercut of important story moments, let's just ignore that one, even though there is a cinematic in the complete collection that plays before the title screen similar to the aforementioned PS1 version where key story beats are shown, but it is done so much better, and it is an absolutely beautiful trailer that will get the player hype to play the game without spoiling the story. The opening of Final Fantasy IV is a gut-wrenching twist of the knife to players expecting to be just another warrior of light saving the day. Instead, we play as Sissel, carrying out unconventional orders from his king that do not settle well in his heart. He is conflicted but loyal. His childhood friend and lover Rosa senses this unease within Sissel. Kain accompanies Sissel, and you also get a glimpse at what is a complicated relationship between best friends, as Kain also has feelings for Rosa. But the kicker to all of this is that they carry out their commands to attack the village of Mist, which results in the slaughter of an innocent town. They meet a little girl whose mother died in the invasion, led by them, led by you, the player. They try to make amends with the girl, but it is too late. The story of redemption begins. Number 2, Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake. The camera panning around the stars to focus in on a girl bathed in a green glow. She walks out to the streets as the camera pulls back, revealing a massive industrial city, the likes of which the series has never seen before. No matter how many times I hear it, I always get chills when the logo strikes onto the screen. The opening theme of Final Fantasy VII, quite frankly, connects with me on an emotional level more than any other theme in any other media. Only thing that comes a little close is probably the opening scroll theme for Star Wars. Camera glitches to a screeching train as it zooms back in, seamlessly transitioning into gameplay. Simply iconic music. The opening bombing mission brought a sense of urgency that while setting up nearly all elements of the story. Barrett explains the planet's condition and the evil corporation killing it, Cloud's unstable state of mind, and after attacking the Scorpion when its tail is up, it was destroyed and you frantically backtrack and escape the reactor within the time limit. Both the original and remake delivered a perfect start, showcasing the game's high stakes and thematic messages. Number 1, Final Fantasy X. Right away, you are met with a powerful theme, Zanarkand. Already emotionally invested in the story before hearing a single line of dialogue. That's how good that theme is. A somber Tidus steps away from the group sitting around a campfire. He softly touches Yuna's shoulder as he narrates the story and says the iconic opening lines.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
Then, almost immediately cutting to an over-the-top blitzball superstar, we see this major juxtaposition of a character with Tidus signing autographs and getting ready for the big game. When Tidus catches a brief moment to himself on the way to the stadium, the player is informed of Tidus' father and the animosity he has towards him. The absolutely epic cinematic with the banger track Otherworld thrashing as Tidus prepares for that blitzball match. This came at a time when rock music was surging in popularity. Linkin Park, Disturbed, these are bands that played on the radio at the mall. The genre ruled arcade sports games like Tony Hawk and WWF SmackDown just to bring it. I remember being in awe of the spherical pool and floats in place as fans cheered in the stands, the players swimming around and tackling each other in a hardcore underwater rugby-like sport. It all just felt extremely cool. Then this enormous monster attacks as Tidus jumps out of the pool performing a trick shot backflip. Chaos ensues as the city is under fire. The mysterious man in red communicates with it as he lifts Tidus up and into the warped black hole. What a freaking fantastic way to start a game. That is why Final Fantasy X is our number 1 Final Fantasy opening.